Hello everybody and welcome to episode number 23 of the Last Minute Wrestling Podcast. As always, I am your host from Italy, Frank Mandolini, and today's guest is none other than the Bouncer, Eli Bulwark. Eli is a Scottish wrestler, a product of the very famed Glasgow Pro Wrestling Asylum. Is a very good friend of the show, being one of my OG supporters. And with him we're going to cover a lot of ground both in his wrestling career and his peculiar job that he does behind the scenes at wrestling shows. Before we go to the interview with Eli, I must remind you that if you want to get in touch with this podcast, you can do it by checking us out on Twitter at LMW Podcast, Facebook, facebook.com/LMW Podcast, many other platforms to be honest, but most importantly, something that is really vital because economically speaking, the things aren't going great. You can check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/LMW Podcast and become a €5 Patreon backer or above. Or if you want it the simple way, you can just go on Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/LMW Podcast and buy us a coffee or two. That's so simple, just like that. Now, on with the interview with the Bouncer of Glasgow, Eli Bulwark. Hi Eli, how are you doing?
I'm very well, how are you?
Well, I'm so happy to have you here. Finally, we were able to meet with this podcast and because we've been in touch for quite a while now on Twitter. You are one of my main followers. Thank you for that.
No, it's no problem at all. Thanks for having me on. I've been really enjoying your content. I've been, it's given me something to listen to when I'm out and about and, enjoying my day. And, to see how far you've come already from your first episode up until now has been fantastic. So no, thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much. And not just you, I mean, everybody from the Scottish wrestling scene has been so supportive so far. I really like you guys, and as I said once, I've never even been in Scotland. So it's when this pandemic finishes, it's really time for me to have a trip up there.
Absolutely, I think you would definitely enjoy it up here. It's a fantastic city, and the wrestling culture here is, obviously it's quiet just now, but when it's when things are open back up, it's going to be booming again. So, hopefully you can come up.
Yeah, I have no doubt about it. I come from a small town here, and there is a good friend of mine that moved to Glasgow a few years ago, and now he lives here with his whole family, and he has a small kid, and he pretty much enjoys living in Scotland. And when I started doing this podcast, I sent him a couple of links about the Scottish indie scene, and it was like, wow, I didn't know that. I was like, yeah, it's pretty big, like up there. And this guy, he's not into wrestling, basically. That's why I didn't know. But once I started to figure out, now he is super invested in that, and he really wants to come to a show sooner rather than later.
Good. No, that's what we like to hear. We're always trying to bring in new audiences, and I've been following the Scottish wrestling scene since 2011, and back then there was maybe 70 people to 100 people in the crowd, whereas I've then seen ICW go out in front of the audience of over 6,000 people. So we always want to bring in new fans, new audiences. He'd be more than welcome along as well.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about you, Eli. When did you start to wrestle, and what? not now, of course, because as we know now there is not so much to wrestle with. No pun intended.
No, of course.
But where do you wrestle normally?
I got involved in the wrestling scene back in 2015, so I've been doing it for about 4.5 years. I started training with the Glasgow Pro Wrestling Asylum, which had opened up 5 years ago. And, I've really probably started only really to step onto the wrestling scene in the last 2.5 years. So, speaking, in the UK sense, I've wrestled up and down the country. I've wrestled, in Glasgow, of course, but I've also been up north to Dundee, to Aberdeen, Stirlingshire, down south in England as well. I've wrestled in Bradford. I've wrestled in Leeds. I've wrestled in, places like Newcastle and Durham and places like that. But in terms of the home promotion, the home promotion for me is Wrestling Experience Scotland, which is the sister company to ICW. So that's sort of the home promotion, which is the family friendly side of that side of the business. So that's sort of where I tend to hone my craft at the moment, with making appearances for other companies as well.
You told me off the record that you train with a couple of Italian fellows, like with Luca the Pazzi and Jokey. Is it right?
Absolutely. Both very, very good friends of mine. I love them both dearly. But yeah, they made a big jump. They came from I don't know where they were previously living, but obviously I know they started in Italy and they moved to places like Spain, Portugal, and places as well. So they are, they decided to come to Glasgow because they seen how well the business was doing, and they've fit in so well. They became very, very good friends of mine over the years. And they're also very, very talented seamstresses as well with making wrestling gears. So, they're very much appreciated in Glasgow. Absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't know about their talent as tailors. I didn't know that before the interview I had with Luca. And that's good to know that we've come full circle with you and and you training together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've certainly helped me over the years with improving and things as well, because they brought in some knowledge themselves, but they also wanted to learn. But, they were very happy to help teach other people as well.
So, Eli, tell me a little bit about your character, the Bouncer. What do you do?
Okay. So Eli himself is a bit like a gun for hire. He's a bit of a mercenary in the sense that, if the price is right, he can, protect you, or if the price is right, he can also cause some pain. So the adage I have is, protection or pain. It's your choice. So, you'll tend to see me working alongside some of the wealthier characters in wrestling. I was the right-hand man of a character called Austin Osiris for a while, who went on a large undefeated streak and things, and he was a pretty wealthy character. So he sort of paid me to do a bit of his dirty work for him. Generally speaking, Eli has a bit of a problem with he enjoys causing mayhem. He enjoys brawls. He enjoys, he comes from a history of bar fights and having to look after the bars and things. So that's his sort of background. Is he started there, but he then became a bit of a gun for hire, and he just loves to go out and beat people up. That's the best part of the job.
Yeah, kicking people's ass for money.
Oh, nothing better.
Yeah, I know. And I know also that behind the scenes you're doing a whole lot different kind of job.
Yes. So I currently work backstage with Insane Championship Wrestling. This all started from I'm a big believer in paying your dues. So we
Mm-hmm.
were the ones. I'm always one of the ones that will go in with the guys and we'll set up in the morning, build the wrestling ring, build
Yeah.
the staging, etc. But I also have a degree from university in filmmaking and
Uh-huh.
acting and things like that. So I had a little bit of camera experience previously, and they needed someone to fill in the role for, filming and directing backstage media, so promos or segments, etc.
Yeah.
And it started really just to cover someone who was unavailable for a few weeks. And then she moved on to better things. And I was doing
Mm-hmm.
they were pretty happy with the content that I was producing. So for the
Yeah.
last 2 years, I've been backstage filming all the backstage segments and promos that you see in Insane Championship Wrestling. And that involves working with Veronica, Lestrange, and
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer Louise, who are the two backstage interview team, and
Yeah.
they are just, they are fantastic. They welcomed me in and made me feel like part of their little family. And it's probably one of the best roles I could possibly have asked for backstage. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so you said that your degree in cinema and this kind of stuff really helped you in this like side venture, still connected to wrestling, still connected
Yeah,
to that. So
yeah.
that's great to know. And what can you tell me like a particular promo, particular segment that you really enjoyed producing?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different types of what we're asked for sometimes. So one of my favourite ones that always comes to memory wasn't necessarily directed. It was more of breaking the fourth wall with
Hmm.
Killian Dain. He was known as Big Damo in ICW, but
Yeah.
he came back for one night only a couple of years ago. And Jennifer Louise was asked to interview him, and he gave probably one of the most passionate national interviews that we've ever had, and I was just so happy to, because I wasn't long in the role. I was only just recently into the role,
Yeah.
and that's always stuck with me as one of my favourite interviews. In terms of segments, etc., there was a long running feud between a guy called Kez Evans and a guy called BT Gunn, who I'm sure most people know.
Yeah.
Um, and there was so many video segments and promos leading up to that, and I got quite hands on with that. I was working a lot with Kez Evans on his solo promos to help him with his content, and really setting up the right dramatic angles and things. But also there was, for example, we did a segment before the show where Bad Company, as they were called, the faction called Bad Company, were doing a
Hmm.
meet and greet with fans, and I just happened to be there filming this meet and greet when all of a sudden Kez Evans interrupts the meet and greet with a steel chair and beats down BT Gunn. He, threw him into the bar, caused a big, massive drama. That was probably one of the things I was proud of as well, because I really cared about this storyline. And I
Yeah.
got so involved in it by this point that I really wanted this to look as authentic as possible and as real as possible. So I spent a good bit of time before the show making sure that I knew exactly, where I was going to be, because, there's a point where I had to put the camera down to try and break up the fight. And, the timing of everything just worked so well when it got played back. And I was just so relieved to see how well, how much I'd put into this. Obviously, it's not all down to me, it's down to the talent as well. But I was very happy with the BT Gunn and Kez Evans storyline, which culminated in their last man standing match at Shug's house party last year.
Hmm.
So definitely check that out if you get the chance.
Yeah. I will definitely want to check that out. And any particular match of yours that we should check?
So a lot of matches, unfortunately, where there's a lot of shows where they're maybe not posted online or things like that. They maybe go straight to DVD or so.
Yeah.
But one of the matches that I'm most proud of is my match with Lionheart, who's no longer with us.
Hmm.
Um, that match is probably still my biggest match to date. despite the fact I've wrestled up and down the country since then, it meant a lot to me. He was the first coach that I've wrestled, and
Okay.
it was also in my home part of town. So I'm from the east end of Glasgow.
Okay.
So we were wrestling in my own, sort of area, and I had people come out to support me, and I really didn't want to let anyone down. And, I remember just walking backstage feeling really, really happy with how that match went. And it's still one that I always ask people if they're looking for content to see. It's on YouTube. You just type in Eli Bulwark versus Lionheart. You'll find that.
Yeah.
So there's that one. There's also a few others out there. There's one in Bradford against a tag team called the Lion Kings. You'll see all that on there. There's also one against HT Drake, which is one of the matches that I enjoyed as well. So there's definitely content out there if you go looking. But a lot of them are sort of seen as either dark matches or straight to DVD sort of thing.
Yeah, I get that. And were you close with Lionheart?
I mean, as a friend, yeah, definitely. I wouldn't say I was as close as some of the guys who have been on the scene longer than him, longer than me, sorry. But the big thing for me is, a lot of people will see that I'm quite. I tend to dedicate a lot of time speaking about mental health and things.
Yeah.
And there was a period where things weren't going so great for me personally, and Lionheart took the time as a friend and as a coach to just check in every now and again and make sure I was doing okay. He also ran his own shows. He had his own company called Pro Wrestling Elite, and I helped a lot with the setup of the show and making sure the crowd was controlled properly and stuff. So we did spend a lot of time chatting together and stuff, and it really was a significant blow to me when I heard that he passed away. It wasn't an easy one to take. But yeah, I would say we were friends, but definitely he was one of my favorite mentors as well.
Yeah, I get that. I understand, and I have to be honest. I am not familiar with this work. I mean, I know what he did and what he represented to the whole Scottish wrestling scene, but all of the knowledge that I have came after his death, and the idea that I have about him is that probably he was the last person that you will imagine doing something like that, because it seemed like such a confident guy. As you said, he wanted to help out the others and took time to do this kind of stuff. And correct me if I'm wrong here. I had this impression about him.
Yeah, I mean he'd been through a lot himself, with his broken neck injuries and stuff like that in the past. But he made such a resurgence. He came back so strong, and he really carried the company. Not carried the company, but he was prepared to carry the company on his back if he had to. But at the same time, the biggest thing that I remember with my match with him is that it was important to him that I look good. He wanted to make. He wasn't just out for himself all the time, and he always had such a good atmosphere backstage, and I don't think there was many people that would have a bad word to say about him. Everybody really, really enjoyed his presence and enjoyed seeing him backstage. They enjoyed working for him in his own company, and they enjoyed working with him, most importantly. And even again, things like the amount of promos that I filmed with him. He's had a hard day himself sometimes. He's just came back from a 30-minute match. He's tired, etc. But he was always still, so happy, and so, he would give us a good laugh before the camera started rolling. We would have so he was definitely one of the important characters in British wrestling, I would definitely say. And, I think unfortunately we didn't get to see just quite where he was going with it, but he was already on a fast rocket to the top. Absolutely.
Okay, I see. And did you have any other trainers?
Yeah, I mean, we're very, what's the word? I would say spoiled for choice with our coaches. So the Glasgow Pro Wrestling Asylum, when it first opened, had your 5 key coaches. So you had Wolfgang, you
Yeah.
had Lionheart, you had BT Gunn, you had
Okay.
Red Lightning, and Jack Jester. So they were the five core coaches. And when they first opened, they were very, dedicated to bringing in guest coaches and seminars. But the talent between those five alone was fantastic. Nowadays we have even more. So, not only do we have, Wolfgang, BT Gunn, Jack Jester, and Red Lightning, we also have Jackie Polo, we
Hmm.
have Liam Thompson, we have Stevie Boy Xavier, and we have Kaylee Ray. So, I mean,
Okay.
when I say we're spoiled, we've got two NXT UK champions
Yeah, you
looking
really are
after it.
spoiled.
And then some of those guys as well, they really are the cream of the crop. And, when I look at the likes of Stevie Boy and, like Jackie Pole and things, these are all people who are destined to go somewhere. And they're still very young. I was shocked to learn that Stevie Boy is the same age as me. And when I look at how much he's accomplished already, but they are the most helpful coaches, and they really want to see future generations do well. Um, and we're so grateful for the coaches that we have, because they've taught us so much, and I know there's still so much to learn as well.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And right now, what do you have on your bucket list?
So yeah, I mean, definitely want to become a more prominent feature in ICW. I've only had a handful of opportunities there so far. Don't get me
Hmm.
wrong. One of them was a world title match, which I'm grateful for.
Oh,
But Jackie Polo was the champion at the time, and he decimated me. What can I say? He was the best. But that's definitely on the goal, is on the bucket list, is to become a more prominent feature in ICW. But I mean, aside from that, I would love to travel. I've already said to Luca de Pazzi, that Italy is definitely on the list, because the way he explains Italian wrestling to me is that it's so full of characters, and there's lots of really eccentric personalities in Italian wrestling, and I think I would fit in quite well there, because I love character work.
yeah.
Um, so Italy is definitely on the list. I would like to go over to WXW's camp in Germany.
Hmm.
That was in the works, but obviously coronavirus has affected that.
Oh, yeah.
And eventually, I've set myself a 5-year goal to maybe at least have a WWE tryout of some kind. I've still got a way to go yet. I totally understand that compared to some of these other guys, I'm still very new in the door. But you've got to aim high. You have to aim high.
Yeah.
So that's definitely some of the key bucket list features for myself.
Well, that's a great bucket list, actually. That's
Thank you.
yeah. I mean, it's like uh, I like to think a lot like you in many occasions. You have to think short term, see what's actually reachable, and then from that point onwards, you can start like to add a little bit of time in the conversation. Let's say to be more long term.
Of
And
course.
yeah, you sounded like completely reasonable in what you said. Okay, Eli, do you want to plug all of your channels?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so you can find me on Facebook by typing in Eli Bulwark, stroke GPWA. That's my
Mhm.
Facebook page. On Twitter, I'm just at Eli Bulwark. You can find me there. I don't have an Instagram for my gimmick, so to speak. I don't have a gimmicked Instagram page, but you can find my personal one on my Twitter should you wish to follow that. But yeah, that's really my social media there. Yeah.
Okay, okay, perfect. And let's close with a question that has not so much to do with wrestling, but since, as we stated, I've never been to Scotland and of course to Glasgow. When? Because it's not a matter of if, but when. I will come to visit you all and spend time at Luca de Pazzi's house where I'm going to sleep. That's a statement that I'm doing that I'm doing right now. He really doesn't know about that, but I'm going to squat at his place. But apart from that, what should I see in Glasgow, and which shows should I attend?
So, I mean, firstly, I'm going to have to invite you out to the Wrestling Experience Scotland shows to hopefully see myself perform. So that's a good taste for a family-friendly atmosphere. But then you also want to go to Insane Championship Wrestling, because I can guarantee, the crowd is unlike anything you've ever seen before. So you're going to have to come to see Insane Championship Wrestling, of course. But in terms of Glasgow itself, you have to go to the Science Museum. It's one of my favourite places to go to. I don't get to go as often as I would like, and also you have to come to the Art Museum, and I'm sure Luca and Jokey will show you around there, because they are they're art lovers themselves.
Yeah, I know. They love so much art. Well, what can we say? In Italy, we are spoiled about it.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, obviously you can come with me and I'll take you around a few bars. We can have a few brawls and things like that as well, and
we'll that would be lovely.
Of course, man. No, you're definitely welcome to come and hang out with us, because you're a great guy, and we've really been enjoying your content. So how else can we say thank you?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, just having a bar brawl together would be the best way to say so.
Exactly. There's nothing better.
I think I've never been into a real fight, but I'm quite big, so I mean, I think I can defend myself.
Well, there's no time like the present, so
yeah. Eli, it has been really a pleasure to talk with you. Is there anything maybe that we didn't cover, that, I don't know, a particular wrestling anecdote that you would like to add or something like that?
Not necessarily. I would just like to say that I hope that everyone's staying safe through everything that's going on in the world at the moment. I know it's a bit crazy at the moment, but I would definitely like to just say that I hope everyone is keeping safe and, look after each other. Everyone's going to have some mental impact, and as I say, I'm quite big on mental health. So if you don't mind me just using this platform to say, to just keep chatting to one another and checking in on one another, and that would be me.
Well, thank you so much. I totally agree with your be kind to one another. I'm totally on board with that. And I can't wait to see you both in a wrestling ring and in a bar brawl.
No, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on here. It's been a pleasure.
You're really welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, wasn't it great to talk with Eli? He's such a kind and gentle person, and I really want to go to a bar brawl with him sometime soon. Next week, for episode number 24 of the Last Minute Wrestling Podcast, we're gonna go for the first time in the beautiful city of Stockholm, Sweden, and we're going to meet with the Turkish assassin Ender Kara. Ender is a light heavyweight, and he's the best wrestler in all of the Scandinavian world. Too bad you still haven't heard of him. Talk to you soon next week. Thank you for listening. Remember to leave a comment, like, share, subscribe and spread the word. To make sure we keep our content going, you can buy us a coffee on Ko-fi at ko-fi.com/LMWpodcast or become a Patreon backer at patreon.com/LMWpodcast. You can find the Last Minute Wrestling Podcast all over the platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podchaser and more. We are also very social, so drop us a line to say hello on Twitter at LMW Podcast and on Facebook at facebook.com/LMW Podcast. I've been Frank Mandolini. Stay safe.